All right. Okay, great. Yes, excellent. Thanks for watching. We'll get a few more people in here. I'm Fred Krueger. I am the co-founder of EOS Lynx, and actually you're in our Los Angeles office, and here's some of my co-founders here who are working on the product that we have. So we have one of the leading wallets for crypto, and those being used by thousands of consumers every day, and they're using it to connect to a number of different blockchains, mainly the EOS blockchain, which was created about 12 months ago. But also we're now working with the Wax blockchain and the Telos blockchain. And we've built this into a wallet on iOS, Android. You can download these things on the iOS App Store, the Google Play Store, or if you go to our website, you can download a desktop version of the wallet and access all these, all the features in the wallet. And so the thing that makes this wallet great is it allows you to communicate with a bunch of different apps. And so there's about 40 different crypto apps that we support that are third-party apps that have been developed for use within our wallet. And these apps allow you to play games, do betting, do some social media type stuff. There's all kinds of different apps, and this is what excites us the most about crypto. It's not as well as just sort of sending money from A to B. And so, for example, this is I don't know if you can quite see it here, but this is our iOS wallet. And, and in this particular stuff, I have different apps on this wallet. And that's what Lynx is all about. It's about accessing these apps, just like you would access apps in the App Store. And the apps can transmit value, so you can give tokens to the apps and they can give you tokens back. And so that's what Lynx is all about. And so, Jason asked me to just give you a little bit of my perception of where crypto is. A lot of people are following Bitcoin just as an investment. But I think one of the things that is more interesting is, can we get this thing to actually scale so it's something that everybody in the world, just like nobody was on Facebook 10 years ago. I mean, it was very much just a college kids thing. Now everybody's on Facebook, and our belief is that 10 years from now, everybody will be using these crypto apps to some extent, and they're going to be using a wallet like Lynx, and they're going to be using a blockchain that is very similar to EOS or other blockchains that are very app friendly. And so, we've developed this wallet, and we're also in the process of releasing our own blockchain. So we had some tech issues, so I apologize for a little bit of a late start. But, talking about wallets, talking about crypto adoption, talking about blockchains. So I'll give you a little idea of okay, so some questions. Thoughts on Safe Network? Not sure what Safe Network is. This is not part of something that you hear about in my circle. So I don't know what Safe Network is. I'm not going to Google it. Made Safe. Okay, this is an older sort of technology. So I would say, look, if you look at sort of crypto technology about 2-3 years ago, there was a whole bunch of projects which really didn't go anywhere. There were a lot of things that looked interesting. People were working on them. They have not achieved any kind of daily active users. And so if you look at kind of the market, the way we see it, we're really mainly focused on not on market capitalization of these cryptos, but on who's actually using them. So if you really look at it that way, at the very top, you have EOS right now, which is pushing 125,000 daily active users on EOS. Now, probably 3/4 of those are from China at this point. And our wallet is the largest wallet outside of China for the American and Western European world. So that's EOS. Ether, which has a much higher market cap, only has on the order of 25,000 daily active users, which is really very small. And Tron, which is another cryptocurrency, has somewhere in the middle, let's call it 30 to 40,000 daily active users. So those are the three cryptos that other than Bitcoin that are really getting a lot of usage at this point. Now there's hundreds of other projects at this point. There's many projects that are, they're still in the kind of research stage. There are some that have, raised $1 billion, but that have not gone live yet. But those, if you're building an app right now, or what we call a DApp, which is a decentralized app, or really an app just that uses tokens, you're going to go on EOS, Tron, or ETH. Where do these numbers come from? So if you look at blocktivity.info, this is a pretty good source of daily active transactions. And maybe Corey, you can pull it up, Blocktivity, on the phone, and we'll take a quick look at these daily active transactions. And the last time I looked, EOS was doing 5 to 10 times as much as the next one, which I believe was Tron, but I'm not 100% sure. So that's one source. And you can also look at DApp Radar, which is a general index of how many dApps are being used every day, what are the leading dApps, what are by platform. So they show EOS, Tron, and Ether. So Ethereum came out first, has a big market cap. To be honest, it's not useful for dApps. It's very, very difficult to build a consumer application based on Ethereum right now. It's kind of a mystery to me why it's still being valued at $20 billion. It's a bet that they're gonna figure it out, but basically anything that you're doing on Ethereum is gonna take you just to transmit Ethereum from A to B or from A to an app will take you at least a minute. So yeah, I have the numbers here. So EOS right now is doing 42 million transactions per day. So over the last 24 hours on blocktivity.info, EOS did 42.5 million transactions. Tron was number 2 with 1.9 million transactions. And actually Kin, which is part of something called the Kick network, did 1 million. Steam, which is sort of the predecessor to EOS, did 960,000. And Bitcoin is number 5 with 844,000, and then we get to ETH with 709. These are not perfect numbers, but they give you a sense, and which is true, that EOS is by far the leader right now in volume. It's a token that you can buy. I'm not going to recommend buying it necessarily, but it has a market cap of, let's call it $3.5–4 billion. Ethereum has a market cap of about $20 billion. Bitcoin has a market cap of $100 billion. So, are these things crazily overvalued? The number 2 is Tron. The ticker is TRX. If you go to blocktivity.info, you'll see this. So Tron is trying to catch up to TS. Okay, what is his name, and should you trust anything that comes from his mouth? Well, my name is Fred Krueger. Should you trust anything that comes from my mouth? Well, you can look up my background, I've been a tech entrepreneur. I've had 9 exits in the past 15 years. I've done a social network. I've done the largest game site on the internet, which back in 2000, which was called iWin. You can still see it. It's still live. So I've got a lot of credibility in the consumer internet space. As far as crypto, I think everybody is trying to figure it out. Nobody really has the answer for crypto. So we have not hit kind of market adoption yet. If you look at the number of people who use crypto on a daily basis, even between all these 3 chains, I would say it's order of magnitude 250,000 people worldwide who use crypto on a daily basis. And it's a lot of it is used to play games. Last opinion in the crypto. So the word shitcoin is, to a lot of people means anything that's not Bitcoin, right? So that's, some people say that is Tron. Does Tron have some issues? Tron has some issues. It's not. It is heavily pumped by its founder, Justin Sun, so it's heavily promoted. It is. There was this whole thing about Justin Sun and having a lunch with Warren Buffett, and I think he's a born marketer, and that's his downfall too. That a lot of people feel like he's over marketed his chain, but that's Tron. Ethereum is based on transactions built into services. Are those transactions? Yes, they are integrated into the stats. So, the reality is, what are the uses of Ethereum? Well, right now, the biggest actual use of Ethereum is another token called Make or Die. And DApp.com or DAppRadar.com, either way. But if you look at Ethereum, the number one real usage of it is the stable coin called Make or Die. The ticker of that thing is DAI. And it's basically a ticker, a coin that's meant to be a proxy for the US dollar. We actually own some of it. It's a way to hold your money in crypto without holding it in the bank. And it's not really based on a fiat in the bank thing. It's based on a very dynamic formula that changes and that makes a sort of collateralized debt, basically, with Ethereum. Very clever. So that's DAI. Coinbase has a number of things. Coinbase has something on EOS as well. So you can, if you want to make, I think, $5 worth of EOS, you can go to Coinbase and take their little quiz, and you can earn $5 just for going to Coinbase. EOS governance. Well, EOS governance is a problem. So basically, EOS is very fast. So if you look at Ethereum, it's slow because every transaction is sort of essentially being held by all the thousands of nodes inside of Ether. So that's it's slow. EOS has this notion of block producers, and Tron does as well. And these block producers are picked in EOS based on a system they call delegated proof of stake, which means that people who have the most tokens pick the block producers. The problem there is that even though they started out by saying, we don't support vote buying, that's exactly what has occurred. And basically the exchanges who have all the volume allowed votes to be essentially bought by certain parties, all of which are Chinese. And the vote buying has basically meant that the Chinese effectively control, or Chinese related companies now effectively control all the block production of the EOS. Is it a problem? Yeah, it's a problem. I mean, I think does Tron have similar problems? Tron has similar problems. It's not as rampant in Tron. they don't discourage it as much. But yeah, so we're looking at Hedera Hashgraph. They have a very good governance model, I think. So Hedera Hashgraph's another one of these blockchains. It's not actually a blockchain, but it's a distributed ledger. So it's a competitor to a blockchain, and it's based in Texas. I've met them. I've been to their thing. We've talked to them. They're behind as far as, their mainnet's not even launched yet. I think they're going to have some issues taking this thing to market, but they have a governance model which we like a lot, which is much more like a committee or a board that picks the node validators or block producers, right? So it's more like they're picked by committee and not by just who happens to have the most votes that day. So EOS is another Dan Larimer scam. Well, it's an attempt to solve the problem of that Bitcoin and Ethereum have, which is they're extremely slow. And you can say all you want that Bitcoin's great and Ethereum's great, but Bitcoin can take upwards of 4 hours to validate. So if you're transferring money once a month and you have 4 hours, that's great. In the 4 hours that you're transferring Bitcoin, the price can move a lot. So it's just not okay for everyday transactions. It's not a thing. So EOS, in my opinion, is the first modern crypto. It's not the last modern crypto, but it is the first modern crypto. Coin to coin. Look, the main thing is between these different coins is how fast are they? How much do they cost? And what's the infrastructure look like from the end user, right? So if you look at EOS, one of the things that we've done a lot is we've really tried to build in a lot of infrastructure that makes EOS very abortable by the end user. So we invented a way of having a mobile app talk to the blockchain. So we basically came up with this idea about 8 months ago. That was one of the very first things we did with our wallet. We said, it'd be great if a mobile wallet could talk to an app on the blockchain. Nobody had done that before. And so we figured out a way how to do this, with deep linking. And we did it, we showed it, and that was one of the things that really propelled our wallet. Litecoin, I am totally uninterested in. To me, it's just like Bitcoin. There's no innovation whatsoever. I'm interested in things that are going to push this thing to mass adoption. Litecoin is not going to be a mass adoption thing. Your Bitcoin wallet talks to the blockchain. Well, okay, your Bitcoin wallet talks to the blockchain, but your Bitcoin wallet does not talk to apps, right? So the problem with Bitcoin is not a scripting language. It's not Turing complete. You can't build a game really on Bitcoin. I mean, there's some extremely basic games that have been built on Satoshi dice on using the Bitcoin script, but it's really not built for that, right? So, our view is that the thing that's going to push these blockchains to, super mass adoption is if you get games like Fortnite and you imagine that you can take a sword out of Fortnite, put it in a marketplace and sell that sword, okay? Take a ticket to a John Mayer concert and then you're not going, boom, you put it on there, it's on the blockchain, it's sold within 3 seconds. So, that's what interests us, right? We don't think Bitcoin is ever going to be mass market. It's a place that it's really good for moving money across borders in a quasi-anonymous way. That's what it is. So we're working pretty closely with a company called Mythical Games, and I'd like to bring them up. So Mythical Games is extremely high pedigree team out of Activision, Blizzard. So these are some of the guys who have worked on World of Warcraft, They sold a company to Niantic, which did Pokemon Go, and they and us and some other people in the EOS world have built this standard called digital goods. And so, we think that these D goods, as we call them, are going to be quite big. And so they've built this game, which is now pretty far along, called Blankos. And Blankos is, imagine Fortnite with on the blockchain, and that's really it. So this stuff's coming. It's absolutely coming, and and this stuff's not coming to Bitcoin, right? So you're not going to have digital goods on Bitcoin. It's just not happening. So will Bitcoin continue to go up, or over time? Maybe, I don't know. Bitcoin is sort of digital gold, but you're saying you did not want to sort. Well, look, I have a 12-year-old who is on Fortnite a lot, and I can guarantee you he loves these digital goods. He will pay a lot for these digital goods, and he will pay a lot for his status on Fortnite. So if you could take a Gucci shoe and move it into Fortnite, he would absolutely do that. So we're very, very big on crypto, on the gaming applications. And if you look at our Lynx wallet, our growth and our active users are all from games, right? So, and one of the things that we think is going to be really huge is free to play games, right? So, if you take a game where you come in, you have free accounts, you just come in, you create an account, it's free, and now you're playing the game. And you win something. Okay, you win a sword, you win a crown, you win something, and now you can take that thing and you can go to a marketplace, okay, and you can sell it or you can exchange it for something else. All of a sudden now you're hooked. Okay, so that's I think the use case where people just get it, and it passes the 12-year-old sniff test like crazy. So we built a little game called, if you're familiar with Minesweeper, we built a sort of variant of that game called Bomb Sweeper on EOS Lynx, and it came out just yesterday, and it's already getting quite a bit of play. And it's just a very clever Minesweeper, but you can actually win crypto with it. So you don't have to pay any money, you just win crypto. And people love it. And the minute my 12-year-old saw this thing, he was like, "Oh my God, I just won some crypto. This is fantastic." So it's something emotional about this that's amazing. Why did EOS drop? I will tell you this. I think one of the things is everybody in the crypto world is focused on these stories and these sort of very macro things. The real thing that we think is going to drive this market is going to be adoption, right? So if we can put through some big numbers, if you hear that your 12-year-old, or if you hear that the guy next door is playing crypto, that's when people are going to get really excited. If people are not going for these stories anymore, they're just, we're going to revolutionize this or that, and that we tried that didn't work. But it's the same thing with social media. When 10 years ago, I had a company called Tag World, and we had we sold it to MTV, and we had one of the first early social networks. It was sort of right between MySpace and Facebook, and we talked to investors and stuff, and nobody thought that social networking was going to become a mainstream thing. And I think right now there's that same feeling. Nobody thinks that blockchain is going to be, a mainstream thing. But my money's on that. My personal money is that I think these crypto tickets, crypto IOUs, crypto tokens, crypto non-fungible tokens, going to be absolutely embedded everywhere. So, I think we're going to see some pretty good adoption, and I think likely it's going to happen over the next 12 months. So, EOS, how can we bring EOS to the mobile phones? Well, The biggest problem with EOS, and this is the problem that we being on the front lines of EOS have noticed, is that an account on EOS is not free. So an account on EOS costs us $4. Okay, this is, in our opinion, is a design flaw with the way that the EOS blockchain system works. What that means is you come, if you want to share, go to EOS and get our wallet, we're going to charge you $2 for that. And that's a lot for just casually just trying to check it out. So imagine if you had to go to Twitter and, pay $2 just to join Twitter. A lot of people would not do that. I mean, a vast majority wouldn't. So we need free accounts. That's the thing that we need. So our new chain that we're just about to launch, called Lynx Chain, has free accounts, has all the speed of EOS, has all the good stuff about EOS. EOS is not an Ethereum fork. That is incorrect. It's completely different than Ethereum, completely different structure and so on. But the problem with these free accounts is a very big problem. The other problem we think is very big is we need names and avatars. So, without names and avatars, I think it doesn't feel like a modern application. So in EOS, every single thing has a 12-character name. It's very, very odd. There's no notion of an avatar. So it doesn't feel very social. So I'm looking at this stream. Everybody's got these little avatars, these little names. And, that's Second Life. Okay, well, Second Life game, there is a project on EOS that is created by the guy who created Second Life. So there is a new sort of version of Second Life that's being worked on EOS. So that's definitely coming. All these games are definitely coming. I think we need more of an infrastructure for some of these games. Other uses outside of video games, I'll name a few, okay? So I think along the digital goods thing, I think the number one thing that we're going to see a lot of is tickets, okay? So the ability to have an event and to take a ticket for an event, or to do a meetup and have an event or a pass or any of those things be digital, and to be able to create it and then just to have it in your wallet, right? Sort of think about Eventbrite, but just cryptographically done, or think of Ticketmaster cryptographically done. This is, we think this is going to be a pretty significant application of these digital goods. And then there is, there's once we get, if you go to the history of Facebook, the games like Farmville and Mafia Wars were the things that really pushed the adoption of Facebook. That's what really pushed it at the beginning. Now, not so much, right? But in that phase, that was what's pushed it. So our belief is that the games are going to be the thing that drives it forward. And once everybody's got into it and they have their account, they understand how to save keys and everything, now we can talk about a lot of other different applications, like payment. I'm going to hire somebody, I'm going to pay them in something like EOS. Okay. Competitive and edge of EOS Lynx over thousands of other tokens, coins. Well, EOS Lynx isn't a coin. EOS is a coin. So I'm not sure. I sort of went over the use cases of EOS. I'd say EOS is the biggest use case of EOS is that there's, it's the largest blockchain really right now. How will the new EOS upgrade in September help the dApps? Not so much, to be honest. So there's EOS 1.8 is coming out on September 23rd. And it's, it's under the hood, it's a pretty big upgrade. And it doesn't really make the apps that much better or faster or anything else. But it's under the hood, it's a big deal. Cryptoville, yeah, like Farmville. Yep. Buying groceries. Look, I think anything where payment is, so if you think of apps right now, right? Apple and Google both take 30%, right, for digital goods. So, I think you're going to see a lot more once we get much more sort of mainstream. You're going to see a lot of uses of paying things or buying things, especially across borders, right? So, if I want to buy some service of a programmer in Lithuania, very difficult to get money over to Lithuania right now. I mean, it'll take you a week. Getting money to India will take you a week. So, eyes of the world, you should unsub. I don't know this. Can you buy groceries in games? Oh, yeah, I don't know about that. Bank of England. Okay, so Libra. So right now, one of the things that's really kind of a lot of people are talking about in the crypto world is Libra and Facebook getting into this game, right? So Facebook has huge ambitions. Facebook wants to has a stable coin, a basket of currencies that is going to back, called Libra, and a wallet called Calibra that is mainly used. They're planning right now just for payment, just so I'm going to send some Libra from A to B. That's it. Not interact with apps, no smart contracts, etc. The problem is, Congress and world governments saw this and they were like, well, Facebook's got 2 billion users. If they pull this off, we're basically handing the financial system over to Facebook. So, it's likely to, at the very least, be delayed quite a bit. On the other hand, China is coming out with something similar this year. It looks like in November. Can you pay taxes with crypto? In some states, you can. In Wyoming, you can now pay your taxes with crypto, state tax. You cannot pay your federal tax in crypto right now. Libra will be a smart contract problem. Eventually, it will be. There is no spec right now. Now, Move it's not. I've looked at Move. It's not you can't write an app in Libra. You can program. You can sort of program the stuff, but you're not going to build an EOS app in Libra at this point. It's a very sort of limited scripting language. Like Bitcoin has sort of similar scripting capabilities. Lightning Network. So, this is interesting. I'm interested in the Lightning Network. I've used the Lightning Network. I have one of the wallets, the Blue wallet on my iOS. I've talked to the developer there. I think Lightning Network has some problems though. I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist. I think that Lightning is an attempt to take Bitcoin and try to use it for something that it's really not good for, which is everyday transactions, etc. Getting money off Lightning is really difficult. It's not that easy. And Lightning does not have a lot of volume right now. So I think Lightning is still, let's put it in the work in progress category. Arizona takes crypto. Okay. I think eventually they will, right? I think eventually every state will take crypto because why not? They're going to get more revenue. So Bitcoin Bitcoin is just not going to replace these smart contract languages like EOS. It's just not, or it's not going to replace the sort of small amount payment use case like Libra. So I don't know about Lightning. And Lightning also has some major security problems. So it's just not clear, right? So Lightning it's not like there's hundreds and thousands of people developing Lightning. It's a couple of very small teams like us. And Open Bazaar. Now that's interesting. Okay, so can EOS be used for sort of an eBay type application, people selling something? And the answer is probably yes, but probably also in ways that are better than Open Bazaar, right? So OpenBazaar is an application. You can download it, and you can very crude user interface, and you can connect with people. And I have not found it useful, but I definitely think that EOS, the transmission speeds are so fast that if we had a good way of selling stuff between people, and maybe services might come first. That's sort of my thinking, which is, I need somebody to translate this document. Okay, I'll pay $10 for it, or 2 EOS. Okay, somebody might do it. Boom, I'm done. Translate, done. Send the EOS, or send the EOS first, get it translated, etc. There's some rating system. So, these are big markets. It's so much more efficient than trying to PayPal them, because PayPal doesn't integrate with apps. So if you're going to build, Fiverr, it's a clunky UX where it connects to payments. Then if there's a problem, PayPal can claw back, and there's a lot of problems. So those are some of the things. But where I'm quite bullish is on sort of EOS-like architectures, and specifically, transmission time to get value, under a couple seconds, because I think that's what people are used to. I'm interested in, getting this stuff up to down 10% today. I don't know. I didn't even see it was down 10%. So, 10% is, it's Wednesday. It doesn't mean anything at all. But I think we're not going to get mass market if this transmission speeds are minutes or hours, and there's just a very limited amount of people who have the time for that. So when you look at EOS, I can send EOS right now, from A to B with my wallet, and I'll just do it. I'll just give you an example. So in this particular, I have 400. Let's pick this account here. Okay, this account here is $34 in it, and I can send. I go to here and I can send. I'll send EOS to this account here. I'll send $1 to this account. I click there. Click there. I'll have to confirm here. But anyways, it's very quick to send. Hard to do while looking at the screen, but it's very easy to. It's very easy to send money. It's fast. It's like Venmo. So selling game items in a decentralized eBay, totally agree. Think it'll be, I've done a lot of videos where I have EOS and Ether side by side. EOS is always a couple seconds. Ether is always a couple minutes. Check out our website on eoslynx.com. Download our app. I think you'll like it. Almost everybody seems to like it. Are there a ton of stuff to do today? Yeah, there's quite a few things already, and there's a lot of new things every. Is blockchain going to be as big as everybody says? I think so. I mean, that's my gut feel. I think we are going to move to a digital payment system, and I think I think there's going to be stable currencies like Libra, and I think there's going to be non-stable currencies like EOS. It's jury's out as to what those non-stable currencies are. Jury's out as to what Apple does in the space, or Google, or Facebook. Nobody knows, right? Or Amazon, for that matter. Is it a new paradigm? Yeah, I think it is a new paradigm. I think the whole thing is being able to send money from A to B that cannot be clawed back, right? So Venmo works pretty well. I can send money from A to B, but Venmo is really just a saying, check, I owe this other person this money, and it's just kind of catching those chits. your Venmo account can be shut down. Your PayPal account can be shut down. Money can be clawed back from your PayPal account. It's not final. Crypto is final. Once I send crypto, there's absolutely no way for me to get it back. And so that's what you need in an application, because the application has to have, if the electric car is talking to the power charger and it's, it says, I need to get a little bit more charge. Here, I'll send you $20 worth of crypto. The charger, can't say, well, wait a second, a month later, I'm sorry, this card was on fraud alert and I need my $20 back, because it may have paid something else. So, this whole supply chain thing doesn't work if money's not final. So I think that's what's so great about crypto, and that's intrinsically everybody who's into crypto understands that. It's painful now dealing with crypto because, if you're dealing with Bitcoin, it's very slow. You better get all those, those hashes right. It's not a friendly user interface. Venmo, you can't always get a refund. I'm not saying you can always get a refund, but it's really the biggest problem is for the merchant, right? Because if you're a merchant, PayPal can shut you down. They can come back to you for a charge that happened 6 months ago, and say, well, I'm sorry, some of the money that you thought was yours is not yours. I'm sorry, you shipped a television to the guy, but he actually didn't pay for it, so, and you have to eat that as a merchant. So, XLM, Ripple, I've never seen anybody actually use it. I don't understand it. Wallet security. Okay. So there's a trade-off here, right? So if you want the most secure, what you're going to want is a hardware wallet that basically you're going to have the actual keys stored on the hardware wallet. And it's something we are going to integrate into our desktop wallet. And I think if you have more than $5,000 in crypto or $10,000, it depends on obviously your risk appetite. But if you have a substantial amount of crypto, you can't put it into a wallet that's just based on a key that you write down. So you pretty much need to have a hardware device that stores that thing, and you plug the hardware device into your computer and you access it. That's what I do for large amounts of crypto. If you're, on the other hand, if you are just using a couple $100s, a phone is plenty good protection, right? So, it really goes back to the actual physical analog. I've got money here. How secure is the money that's sitting in this wallet? I've got $25 here, right? How secure is it? Well, not that secure. I could lose it. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if I lost it, right? So, so mass adoption is to get kids using it first. I agree with that. So I think that what are kids likely to get interested in first is probably digital goods that are in games. That's probably the number one thing. And I think if celebrities are just pushing it without having a clear tie into what they're doing, I don't see that working, right? So, and that was sort of tried in 2017. Floyd Mayweather was pushing some crypto, but that wasn't really great. Nobody really thought, okay, I need to use crypto because Paris Hilton's using it or Floyd. That's not so cool. But when there's something actually useful and some celebrities using it, a pretty good example of that would be Twitter. Ashton Kutcher was one of the first users of Twitter, and he wasn't a paid supporter of it. He was just he was just using it. And he hit 1 million. He was the first person, I think, to hit 1 million followers on Twitter. And everybody thought that's great, So I think we kind of need to see that sort of phenomena on crypto. We need to see some celebrities, not just paid shills pushing it, But if we can get some celebrities saying, you know, this is really cool, and you know, I'm going to have, you know, as an example, I'm going to give in my next, you know, Jay-Z saying, you know, my next album, I'm going to have the lyrics only available for that you can buy them using crypto, you know, and they're going to be given to you in this, you know, the special, you know, non-fungible token that's going to come with videos and other stuff. That would be interesting. I think a lot of people would find that very interesting. Now, are we there yet? Well, not really, because we don't, first of all, have digital goods yet on even on EOS. Period. We will next year. So you know, I think we're going to see stuff like where, you know, a Taylor Swift concert is done where every seat is sold on crypto. I think we're going to see stuff where, you know, you're going to have these kind of special goods that are going to come, and they're going to be crypto only. So I love that idea, but I think, you know, you just can't say, yeah, throw a bunch of money and pay some influencer. That's not going to work. And I think right now, especially with the barriers to entry where they are right now, we probably need 6 months, you know, to clear out these user interface hurdles. And what happens when the government bans it? Well, the government could ban it, right? So some governments are probably closer than others. India looks like it's going to ban crypto. So might happen, right? Is the US going to ban crypto? I don't think so. I think that would be a stretch, because what does that mean? Well, are they going to ban digital goods too? You know, it's like it's sort of like there was talk when the internet first came out. You know, I'm old enough to remember it, where people were concerned about the internet. They thought, well, that's going to be a bad idea. It's going to, you know, it's going to foster these chat rooms, and there's going to be terrorists and all this stuff. And the answer is that, you know, there are people that terrorists do use chat rooms, but so do everybody else. And at the end of the day, it's not a reason to stop technology. So, you know, reversible transactions. Yeah, look, reversible transactions they're good. I mean, for some things you want to have reversible transactions, right? I like to have somewhat reversible transactions. On the other hand, in many cases, you don't want reversible transactions. So it's not one is better than the other, but there are use cases for both. And I think in many cases, if you're in India and you want payment on something, when the guy in America is paying you, you want to know you've got the money. So, you know, there's a bunch of these there's a gold one in Iran. The Venezuela is evidently coming out, or has come out, with a petroleum-based one. So, you know, can you really completely ban Bitcoin? Probably not, right? Like, you know, you could run Bitcoin. You can run Bitcoin from the internet. You don't need any software or anything to run Bitcoin. And at some point, I think that if people start banning it too much, I think there will be, like, the Rebel Alliance will form, and will say, you know, we're only going to accept Bitcoin. You know, so, you know, it's hard to really do this, and it's also Bitcoin in particular is it's, you know, in contrast to the complete financial, all this deficits and everything else, you know, mismanagement on world governments, you know. So you have negative interest rates in many countries right now. You know, deficits are out of control. You know, the idea of having a fixed amount of a currency like Bitcoin has a lot of appeal. So I don't think Bitcoin's going away. But at the same time, I don't think Bitcoin's taking over crypto. I think that there's a bunch of people who believe that, and I think it's, I don't believe that. So how do you reduce the electricity cost to mine? Well, you know, EOS and these proof of stake things, including where Ethereum's going, don't really necessarily require a lot of electricity. Bitcoin does, but so does banking. Right? Banking uses a lot of electricity. There's a lot of human beings that are needed to, run the banking system. So, you have to look at it apples to apples. I think I don't think the environmental reasons for Bitcoin are really that well thought out. I think it's and a lot of it's renewable, by the way. So I'm not convinced of that. But I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist. I think everybody should have a little bit of Bitcoin, but I could see arguments for Bitcoin not going up so much. I can see arguments for EOS not going up too, and I can see. So a lot of this stuff, I'm not trying to push really a token here. I'm trying to say that I do want to push the narrative, though, that the stuff is not, it's not just all pure hype, and it's not all pure, it's a scam. Like, so a lot of people just think, okay, scam, it's hype. The fact that, you can do business electronically. You can have apps that are starting to work in these cryptocurrencies. It's exciting. And for me, it's like one of the most exciting things I've seen since the internet, or since at least mobile phones, right? Since the iPhone. So I think it's a major thing. I think we're going to get through the name recognition. Yeah, well, so did AOL have name recognition, right? Yahoo had a lot of name recognition as well before it got blown out of the water by Google. So the name recognition thing, I don't see as that important. I think the usability usability and addictiveness are much more important than name recognition. So at the end of the day, if there's something if all the cool kids are using the new Fortnite coin, well, it could come out of nowhere and it'll have way more users than Bitcoin, overnight. But yeah, I like the narrative of Bitcoin is fantastic. And I don't know if everybody's been following the whole Craig Wright trial and stuff. It's like it's interesting. But look, I think we're Bancor technology. Yeah, Bancor tech it's interesting. The reality is these cryptos are not completely convertible one to the other free of charge. So if you have crypto A and you want to get to crypto C, many times you have to go crypto A to B to D to C, and you look at all the costs in that, and you're looking at 5 to 10%. So I'm not sure about that. We're just not at the point where merchants are going to be able to accept all crypto. I think there will be winners there. I think merchants may be interested in accepting multiple forms of stablecoin, for example. So I'm not convinced that you're going to be able to pay with 3,000 cryptos at Starbucks. I think you're going to have to convert to something else, and then Starbucks may accept Bitcoin at some point, but I've used Bancor, and look, even if you go to Bancor.network right now, you can't use it if you're an American citizen. So if you're an American resident, legit enterprise current. Well, EOS, I can tell you one thing, that some of the guys who were at EOS, and I'm friendly with them, my friend David Moss, they created Strong Block, and they're sort of going really after the enterprise market. That's a separate market. My gut feel is enterprise is going to lag consumer. So I think we're going to see the enterprise they're doing some, they're doing some tests. They've got people looking at this in every major company, but they're just tests. I don't think Starbucks is going to do their own cryptocurrency and wallet and everything else before, something like EOS, and I say like EOS, something like EOS hits some degree of success. I think they have every incentive, for IDEX. So I know the IDEX team very well as well. But IDEX is not particularly, this is not particularly easy to use. So again, the user interface things are big hurdles, and that's kind of my team is entirely focused on that. How do we make this thing super easy to use? I mean, I think you can go to IDEX, you can try it. It's just tough. It's tough to do it. Bitcoin is not really for commerce. Yeah, I think, it's really a long-term store of value. That's it. Monarch, yeah, I know the Monarch guys very well. It's fine. It's not an app wallet. It's a multi-wallet, right? So it does a lot of different currencies and stuff. That's not where our focus is. I mean, we're only focusing on apps. Why are 16 of the top 25 EOS block producers controlled by China? Because most of EOS is invested by Chinese investors. So that's why. So most of the money that funded EOS, most of the $4 billion that were put into EOS is Chinese money. That's the reality. Amazon Pay. Well, that's a good question. Amazon has not divulged its crypto plans. I gotta believe they've got them. They gotta believe they're thinking about it, and I gotta believe it's going to be good, like everything they're doing. But again, I think one of the things we're seeing with Libra and when you're looking at a company like ours or even EOS, you have one level of government regulation. But when Facebook or Amazon or Google starts talking about crypto, you get into a whole separate, separate level of regulation. Well, actually, there are other. So to build what we call a DApp, right? You really don't need any C++. You can use. They're really just web apps, right? So you can build them in anything like React or whatever, right? So you don't need to do C++. You need to do C++ to actually work on the smart contracts themselves. But the reality is most apps don't need that. So they just need to interact with a wallet like Lynx via an API. So you don't need to be a C++ developer. You need to be a web developer. So that's just not perfectly thing. All DApp games come from China? No. In fact, we built two of them. We have one called Alien Invasion and another one called Bomb Sweeper. Sorry. EOS will be accepted on Alibaba? Possibly. I don't know. I don't think EOS will play a role in Chinese government cryptocurrency. I'm imagining not. Any API capable language. Yeah, so if you look at our API, the Lynx API, it's very simple. You can write an app pretty quick, and actually a pretty good app too. The U.S. voting system, I think it's kind of a mistake. I don't think that block producers should be rotated every 5 minutes like EOS does. So advantages of dApps versus standard apps. The big advantage is that a dApp can receive tokens and it can dispense tokens, right? That's the biggest advantage of these things in reality. So let's just take an example. Maybe you have a dApp that is, a horoscope dApp, right? Okay. It costs, $1 to get your horoscope read. So you insert $1, just like you're inserting $1 in an arcade, and now you get your horoscope read. You can't do that in really a regular app. You're going to have to get the money using in-app purchase on Apple or Google Play or something like that. And then, if the app's going to give you some digital token or certificate or something like that, again, hard to do that with an app. So those are some of the things. App, blockchain development need to remember, building for everyday people. So here's the problem is, if you're looking at app development, and this is why a lot of this stuff didn't work. People forgot how hard it's going to be to get people to buy a token, integrate their token into the wallet, access the token, and access the dApp. So a lot of people raised, $10 million for their project, and they've got part of their project working, and then they realized, oh, the person is going to have to buy my token from an exchange like Coinbase, at best, right? Or some other small exchange. Then they're going to need to store the token somewhere. Then they're going to need to interact with my app somehow. And they never really thought through that. And, the infrastructure a year ago was not there. The infrastructure is getting there, so, and I like to think that Lynx is part of that infrastructure. When EOS came out, the only way to create an account was through command line. So you find all these games, just go to EOS Lynx, download our desktop. They're embedded in the desktop. So, our desktop's like an app store, right? So, and that's part of the thing. It's like, where do you find these games? Where do you figure out? Without some notion of an app store, you can't, you can't, EOS does use QR codes. So there is very much the notion of QR codes. And well, our Lynx uses QR codes for a lot of things. There's probably some further applications. Do people pay taxes on cryptocurrency? Yeah, you have to pay taxes. EOS Desktop looks clean. Yeah, thank you. We try to make it very clean, so, and you can sort of see, we have all the major apps on EOS right in that desktop. So, for the non-Chinese, there's a few Chinese ones that we don't have, but yeah. So, okay, dApps into Uber and Lyft apps. Look, those things are, Uber, for example, is part of the Libra, is part of one of the Libra council members. So Uber likes the idea of crypto, right? And there are some Uber competitors now that are also doing some dApp type stuff. EOS 1.8. I'll tell you, the one thing that we're the most excited about is the ability to do authenticated. They have something called the manifest stuff, which is in 1.8, which means that basically I can authenticate just from the website, and sort of use my mobile wallet really to authenticate with this thing called WebAuthn. So it's a pretty technical thing, but I think it's pretty important. What are the future projects and applications for EOS? I'd say a speed increase. Yeah, it is. Look, EOS is fast though. So, you make it twice as fast, doesn't really matter. Lynx token staking. Look, we don't like staking. We don't think staking is a great idea. Most users don't understand staking. And so, we've built a competitor that we are going to be, you'll hear quite a bit about, hopefully, in the next 3 months, to EOS, which does not have staking. So there is no staking at all. So our blockchain Lynx does not use staking. It's just free to use. So we basically taken what EOS offers, which is super fast transactions, block producers, etc. We kept that, and we got rid of staking. We get rid of resources. We got rid of network, RAM, CPU, staking, having to lock up your tokens. We got rid of all that. Yeah, it's like a savings, but users don't understand it. Like if you tell a user, let's suppose some guy is using Instagram, and you said, I'm sorry, you need to stake some Insta tokens in order to take that picture. Yeah. They won't get it. It's just, it's not a everyday concept in the normal in the normal world. So you can explain it all you want. Users don't get it. It's a very odd thing for users, you know, to understand staking. And I've tried. You know, we've tried to build user interface into Lynx about staking. It's hard. People don't get it. They don't understand when they're going to get it back. Right on EOS, it takes a minimum of 3 days. Why 3 days? Well, because somebody picked 3 days. You know, so it's very counterintuitive. If you look at the resource tab, so we have this tab on Lynx, and we call it the resource tab, and you can see this is. I'll show you what it looks like. It looks like this, okay? And I can guarantee you, nobody understands these terms, right? So the CPU is in 1.95 ms. I don't even know what that is. Milliseconds? I don't know what that is. Net, 1.07 kilobytes of net. What is it? Like, so, you know, I can tell that I'm pretty good on CPU and net, and I'm not so good on RAM in this account, but I have absolutely no idea. So this just, in my opinion, does not belong in a consumer app, right? Yeah, I understand the general idea, right? The latency, but like the metrics don't make sense to a consumer, you know? So if my wife sees this, she's going to be like, I have no idea what this is. Yeah. This does not exist on Twitter. This does not exist on Instagram. This does not exist on WhatsApp. It's a crazy metric. It's crazy that you have to do that, right? So, you know, I think we have to take that functionality and hide it, right? So, you know, like if you know, blockchain should just work. So a user should come into a wallet like Lynx, and if I want to send some money to, you know, Ben Althauser there, I should just send money. I should click on Ben. He should have a little verified thing, so I know it's Ben. I can check his username, and then I send him money. He gets the money. Well, there would never be any case where that doesn't work. Never. You know, that's how Venmo works, right? And the same for an app. So the stuff for users just has to work. You know, that's my view on Tron. You know, I went to the Tron marketing summit in San Francisco a year ago. It was a year ago. I don't even know, it was a year ago, not quite a year ago. I met Justin. You know, I think he's a good marketer. You know, but I think I don't love the user experience of Tron. You know what I mean? I think it's, you know, I'm a UI nut, and so, you know, if I go to, you know, if I go to this Tron wallet, you know, this is the Tron wallet, and, you know, let me log in. I'll just show you what I'm talking about. You know, this is, to me, it's, you know, it doesn't really work for me. It's, you know, it's sort of video gamey, but it's, you know, it's I don't know. To me, it's very wonky. You know, I feel like, you know, a lot of the stuff that EOS did were really good decisions, like having accounts. I mean, like Tron does not really have an account name concept, right? So Tron has, it's like Ethereum, basically. You have these long hashes. So you have this Tron account, it's just basically a hash. So getting silver or gold, who knows? You know, who really knows? You know, the difference between Bitcoin or gold. I actually would go. I would think Bitcoin will outperform gold longer term, because I think both of them are ways of kind of taking money outside of the system. And I think Bitcoin has a lot of advantages over gold. I think it's more transportable than gold. I think the supply is completely known, whereas gold, they can always find some more. You know, I think, but, you know, to me, Bitcoin is not blockchain. It's not as interesting a story as, you know, finding the next Facebook, you know, the next consumer application, you know. So, and maybe it's just my particular China's V chain. Yeah. So, gold money. I don't know gold money. There's a bunch of gold backed tokens. There's even one on on sort of an EOS blockchain called Warbly that's coming out. So there's a number of ways potentially you can get a token for gold. I'm not a gold bug, really per se. I do actually have some gold, but I just think to me that look, if this thing can get to the next, look, I remember when YouTube came out, and it was very hard to predict that YouTube would be as big as it is today. Same with Facebook. It's really hard to predict how all this stuff happens and moves. But I do feel it's going to go mass market. EMP deletes the wallet. It doesn't matter. So all the wallet is a way to store a private key, Augustino. So that's the most important. Is I could lose this phone, doesn't matter, right? I have the private key somewhere. Peter Schiff, Peter Schiff is an absolute EOS hater. I mean, not EOS, crypto hater, and he thinks it's all going to zero and Bitcoin will never get to 50,000. But Peter Schiff was negative on Bitcoin when it was $10. So I think you have to take Peter Schiff's stuff with a grain of salt. I think overall, I think I'm pretty bullish on this stuff. I think it won't take that much. I think we're pretty close on some of the user interface stuff right now. I think it'll now just take a couple of good games and a couple of good apps for that number, which is let's say call it a couple 100,000 daily actives, could go to a couple million or tens of millions of daily actives pretty easily. With so many people now online, Facebook has, between Facebook and Instagram, you have 2.5 billion daily actives right now. So I'm pretty convinced that we're going to be able to get some pretty good numbers right now in the next 12 to 24 months. I don't think we're like years and years and years and years away. So that's why I'm in this space. I've been in the internet at the very beginning of the internet. I've had some good successes in internet. I had the largest game site on the internet, iWin, at one point. We had 30 million active users, 30 million monthly uniques, 20th largest site on the internet. And that was at a time when the internet was, 1/10 or 1/20th the size it is today. So, I think we're going to be able to see similar numbers or bigger numbers on these blockchain things. I think we're just a little early. We need to get we need to get some of these games. We need to get some of these killer apps, and we need to clear out these crazy problems of, accounts and, things like Ether are just not going to work. I mean, they're just not. So, I think I think we're going to really, I think we have an amazing potential 24 months ahead of us, and potentially, that's really when the whole thing starts. I think, this whole 2017 phenomena of, euphoria. I think it's going to be a little bit like the .com movement of 1999. Well, the real story was not that. The real story was, in the decade afterwards, when Google was born, when Amazon was born, and when Facebook was born. So I think the real story is going to be, a little later. And so, I'm really genuinely very, very excited about the coming couple of years here. I think we're going to see some amazing stuff. So in conclusion, I would just like to encourage you. You can hit me up in our Telegram channel right now. We don't have chat built into our application yet. You know, you can hit me up on Telegram if you want to talk to me, if you have any questions. You can also please download our wallet and talk to me or any of the other members of our team. Happy to, we're pretty much there on Telegram 24/7. You know, there's somebody there answering some questions. And those are my team guys, my designer, Corey, and some of the other people. So, we're happy to help out, answer any questions. And, you don't have to make a decision about whether crypto's a big thing or not. You can come in, you can get there, you can get $5 worth of crypto and you can play a game, And if that doesn't interest you, well then great, you haven't lost anything. You've just lost a little bit of time. It doesn't have to be a big investment thing, and you don't need to find the perfect crypto either. I really think that from a user interface point of view, we are the best. So start with us. By all means, check out Bitcoin, all those Bitcoin wallets and everything else as well. So I'm going to end it there. Thanks a lot for participating in the stream, and appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Good job.